place, 17104.com.
Hello and welcome. I'd like to invite you to just enjoy the experience that we're about to encounter. I'd like to introduce to you a man of a very humble beginning, a man that was able to overcome the horrific misclassification of special education. A caring man, a man that will encourage you because he's been there and done that. And I'd like to encourage you to keep an open mind and be empowered to change your life. I'd like to present to you a man of men, Richard Utley.
Good evening, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, we got an interesting program this evening. I think that you will find it very informational. I think you'll learn a lot from it. But before we get to that, I always take my little minutes for my little commentary. Well, we got a lot to talk about real quickly. Well, I'm sure all of you saw the debate, if that's what you want to call it. I don't know what to say. All I could say is that neither one of them were shining stars in the debate. Neither one. It was a shame that I thought that we would get much more information. I did think that the President, Joe Biden, would be more articulate, but we all know that wasn't the case. And I know a lot of you at this point have already then kicked him to the curb and felt that he's too old to run and that he should not run. My attitude to you is very clear. You have to decide the choice. What is the right choice that you want to pick? And when I say that, I want to say three things. I want you to think about some things because that's what this program is about. Number one, up until this point, we've never ever had this problem about the elections because whenever somebody lost, somebody came next. We never had a problem about a court wanting to give immunity to the President of the United States until we had Donald Trump. I want you to think about that. We've never had these kind of problems, but it's always about him. I'm just saying that. Just think about that. Number two, let's think about the fact that the Supreme Court, 6-3, decided to give immunity to the President on certain issues. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. What is that about? Now, I'm going to bring up something else. A lot of court cases now are being called to question because it pertains to him, and now he says that the justice system is not fair. Think about this. When I was growing up, I was taught that Lady Justice was blind. Even though my neighborhood did not necessarily believe that Justice was blind. We felt that Lady Justice might have had a blinder on, but she could see through it. And we told people that all the time. We told them about the police, we told them about the FBI, we told them, but nobody never believed us. And then the Republican Party decided to say, well, we're the law and order. Law and order. Where are we at today? So now all of a sudden, that what we've been telling you for years, that we never thought that the criminal justice was fair, now all of a sudden it's not fair because it's not ruling in your favor. All I want you to do is just think about it. Form your own opinion. That's all I'm asking you to do next. Just form your own opinion. I'm not telling you to take my point of view. I just want you to think about it. I also want you to think about one other thing, and I'm going to move to something else. If you remember, when five young black men in New York was accused of rape, you remember that Donald Trump suggested that they should get the death penalty. But later on, they were found not guilty. Just think about if they would have had the death penalty. They would be dead, and it would be too late to correct that problem. Just want you to think about it. I want you also to think about this tonight. Many people have gone to jail that should not have gone to jail, and many people have gone to death row who should not have gone to death row. Because we tried to tell you there was a flaw in the system, and you did not believe us. But now all of a sudden, you believe us. Just want you to think about that. The other thing that I think that I'm going to say very quickly, we better understand this country is changing. You know, there's a group that's a farm supply chain, and they've decided that they're going to get rid of LGBTQ, and they talk about that they're not going to do the D and I, things of that nature, because they're only going to go back to their roots, and they're going to go back to the roots of rural America. So what that should tell you is that we better start looking out what is for us. What is our interest? We're going to have to start doing everything for our interest. I keep telling you that. Don't vote for nobody no more if it's not about our interest. Don't support nobody if it's not about our interest. We're going to have to work together to make sure that we get a fair, square deal. I'm just saying that. I'm going to take the gloves off because that's where we are. You know, I did this program. I'm into about my 5th year in my program. And one of the reasons that bothered me, and I think that you should understand this, is that people don't understand that at this point in life, that we're in trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, sex, religion, and national origin. Did you hear me? 60 years ago. So it hasn't been that far. And for some of you who get amnesia, or some of you don't say, well, that happened a long time ago, it's still happening today. But what I want you to do, I always give you an assignment. An assignment I'm going to give you, you can Google it, you can do it however the way you want. I want you to hear the comments of Reggie Jackson. And those of you who don't know who Reggie Jackson is, he was a baseball player. And he was a baseball player, and he played for the Oakland A's, and he played for the New York Yankees. But my point that I want you to hear what he had to say, he went down to Alabama's Richwood Field, the oldest professional baseball field, and is a former home of the Negro League Birmingham, double A team, in 1967. And he went down there because they were honoring Willie Mays, and he talked about his racial experience. He talked about how he was talked to. He talked about how he was treated. And so I want you to go and listen to him and just keep an open mind to understand a lot of people have gone through a lot of things. And I'm going to end on this. I had a conversation with someone, and they said, well, I'm glad that hopefully we can get back to sports, because they had attitudes about sports figures speaking up. And I said to them very clearly, yes, when they're going up, running up and down the field or hitting the ball over the wall, and they got that uniform on, you love them, you think they're wonderful. But when they take those uniforms off and they get in their car and they have to come back in the neighborhood, sometimes they don't get treated like they got treated on the field. And sometimes that's why they say what they say, because they want to hold the fan accountable. So do understand that. So it's time for us now to start speaking up for everything. And all these young people out here I hear saying, well, that was a long time ago. Well, let me just tell you, the rate we're going, you're going to find out it was not a long time ago. So with that, I just want you to know that's why I have this program. Did you know? I'm going into my 4th year of doing this program. I decided to do it because I felt I just wanted us to be able to find out what different people's doing. Did you know? And at the same time, I felt that I wanted to kind of have a platform just to say some things so that you can think about them. And I'm sure a lot of things I say you don't always agree with. And that's okay too. That's all right. Because the most important part of this program for me is to get you to think. So thank you with that. So who's my program today? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very fortunate today. I have a friend that I have coming on. His name is Preston Moore, and he's a realtor. He's a realtor, and he's a Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, and he's the president. And let me just say this to you. I'm glad to have him on, but he's my buddy, my friend. We grew up together. We were childhood friends. And then later on, look at him now, he's the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors president. So he's come a long way. And I'm proud of him, but I brought him on here today because I want him to tell you about real estate. I want him to tell you from a perspective, and I told him this is what I wanted my perspective to be, a perspective of no knowledge. We don't know. We want to buy houses, or we drive past. We don't know what we want to know, but we need to have understanding of some of the questions that we need to ask. Because too often I realize now a lot of things we don't know, but a lot of people do know, so we got to learn to ask those questions. So, Brother Preston, please tell the audience who you are and tell us your journey of how you got to where you got to, even though we both grew up together. I used to go over your house and eat dinner.
Well, good evening, Richard. Nice seeing you. And you know, when I come to Harrisburg, you and I always hook up and go out to dinner along that line. But how did I get here? Well, we both went to Westinghouse High School. We both graduated. We both went to university. I went to Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. I went there for engineering. I changed my mind. I got an undergraduate degree in economics. And then after that, I got a job at the old Equity Bank as a credit analyst. We analyzed commercial loans. And then people had talked to me about trying to get an MBA degree. And my wife at the time worked at the Graduate School of Business. So I applied to Pitt's Graduate School of Business. I was accepted, and I graduated with an MBA in, I think, 1977. And I concentrated in accounting and finance. My undergraduate degree is in economics. My grad degree is in accounting and finance. So I'm like a numbers person. I enjoy numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Then from there, I worked at Ernst & Young. It's a public accounting firm. I was an auditor. Did that for 4 years. Then, auditing was something I knew I did not want to do all the time because I like to interact and talk to people. As an auditor, you're not going to do too much talking. Okay. Then I got a job at Mellon Bank, which is now Bank BNY Mellon. I think they're changing the name to BNY, as a financial analyst. What we did, there were about 8 of us, we analyzed the corporation. In other words, our senior vice president, he made a presentation to the board of directors every month, and all his financial data came from us. We had different departments that we worked with and worked for in order to generate the type of data that not only did he need, but the officers and the board, in order for them to run the bank correctly. And then I left that, and I got a job as a bank examiner. And I did that for about 3 years. And what a bank examiner does, we go out and examine banks from a Federal Reserve, Treasury Department point of view. We're looking at the big picture. We want to have a good idea if the bank is solvent, if we're going to have any issues, etc. And then I left that position, and for 12 years, I was a Treasury analyst. And I was in the Treasury Department. We had about, I think at the time, maybe 25 or $30 billion that we were responsible for. And I was the person, along with my boss, we determined what the credit limits would be for not only banks, but for countries. Because, you have to look at not only how much money or investment you're doing in an individual bank, you have to be concerned with how much you're doing in that country. So, if something goes wrong in a particular country, you want to be in a good position for you to get as much as your money back. And we did that for 12 years. It was very, very educational. And then I got to the point where I had to decide what I was going to do. And people told me that, when you get to a certain point, you're a numbers guy. Either you're going to be a stockbroker or a real estate agent. Well, I knew I didn't want to be a stockbroker. So I decided to get in real estate. And fortunately, my neighbor, Fred Thompson, who's the vice president at Howard Hanna in Pittsburgh, and I talked to him about it, and he said, "Hey, that's good." And he gave me an idea which office I should go to. And I, went to the office. Alice Downing, she was the manager at the time. I signed up for the real estate classes, and then I took the exam, and I passed. And then I've been in the Hampton office my whole career. And when you first come into real estate, you're not going to learn the industry by taking a class. You're going to learn the industry by whatever in-house training that your broker offers, and you're going to learn it by listening to other agents. This is like a case study type operation. You learn it by doing. And I think my second or third year, I became a $1 million producer. And Nancy Andy Oriole, she was just shocked. That's never thought that I was doing that much business. But that's the function of my personality. I don't like to show off, et cetera, et cetera. So I was steady as you go, and I was closing a number of transactions, and that was real, real good. Now, one day Nancy got a phone call, and they wanted Nancy to join one of the committees at the Realtor Association Metropolitan Pittsburgh. And Nancy said her mom wasn't doing well, which we all knew. And she said, why don't you call Preston? He's not doing anything. And my extension is 260, hers is 261. I'm right next to her. I looked up, I said, wait a minute, what's going on? And so I talked to the people, and I agreed that I would join that committee. So in 2009, I got called to say, hey, why don't you run for the board of directors? I said, I don't want to do that. I really don't even want to be on the committee. They said, okay. 2010, they called me back again. And they said, hey, we called you last year. I said, yeah, I remember. Why don't you run for the board? I said, well, okay, I ran for the board. And there were probably 8 or 9 of us running for 6 seats. I lost. I was so happy. I didn't know what to do. It was like I was dancing and jumping up and down and shouting. I dodged that bullet. That's tough. Now, that board seat was going to be on the board for 11, 12, and 13. So around September 12, I get a phone call. And they said, hey, we have an opening on the board because the person went to Colorado. We have a habit of calling the people who lost and ask them if they'd be willing to take the seat. I said, well, what do I have to do? Come to one board meeting a month. I said, okay. I did that. Now, this is where the story gets really interesting. Come January of 13, the treasurer of our local association, Charlene, she had a medical emergency, and she said she couldn't be treasurer, but she wanted to stay on the board. And then, I'm back there trying to hide, and, all of a sudden they say, Preston, why don't you be treasurer? Now, I looked at it the fact that I have an undergraduate degree in economics and MBA in accounting and finance. I like being treasurer. I really enjoy that. I said, okay, but I had to make the decision if I was going to stay in leadership. So I did. So in 13, I was treasurer. 14, I was president-elect for Pittsburgh. And in 15, I was president. I was the second Black president for Realtor Association Metropolitan Pittsburgh. Bobby Epps, he was the first, and I was the second. And then we had a district VP, and BB worked for my brokerage, and she stepped down in 16. I was president in 15. So they say, hey, why don't you be our district VP in 16. I said, well, okay. That meant that I was still going to be going up to Harrisburg for the state association. So then the association, the state, they decided to merge, the different boards. So we used to be District 8, now we become District 10. And the old district had their own vice president, and then it was me. And Lynn Napco said, well, I want to be first. I said, that's fine. So Lynn in 2017 was the first district vice president for District 10. And then I became the second for 18 and 19. And then, most of our leaders at the state level are from the Philadelphia region. And that's a function of that's where most of the people live. I mean, if you're in Pittsburgh, we don't talk about Philadelphia that way. We know Philadelphia is larger than what we are. But Philadelphia and the surrounding counties, they might have 30 or 40% of our statewide population. So when it comes to leadership and voting, we have a lot of candidates from the Philly region. So I ran in, I think, 19, and I lost to L. Perry, who's from Philadelphia. And I ran again in 20, and I won. So that was the first time a person of color had ever won that election to be treasurer. So when 21, so in 21, I was treasurer. 22, I was first vice president. 23, I was president-elect, and this year I was sworn in January to be the president, the first one of color. There's a lot of real estate agents, and we all have to pay attention to setting an example so other people can see it. Vice President Harris, I had a quote in my speech, which said that her mother told her that that's because you're the first. Just make sure you're not the last. And the thing is to always let people realize that they can do this also. If you could go back in time and see Richard and I running around in the Homewood section of Pittsburgh, going to Westinghouse High School, you would never have thought that he would have wound up where he is right now, or would I be where I am too. So the fact is that, things do happen. You have to not give up. You have to keep moving forward, as my buddy Winston Churchill said. You never retreat. You never give in. You never give up. You just keep going forward, and hopefully good things will happen to you.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and I think that's very important, and that's why I have these programs on, so that people can understand there's people out there doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Even you were going over some of your career, and you talked about bank examiner. I hope somebody hears that out there, because maybe they can be a bank examiner.
Yeah.
But they would not know about being a bank examiner if they have not been exposed to it. And
That's
one thing I like to do in this program is to have people be exposed to things and say, you know what, I didn't know a bank examiner, or I didn't know that a brother was over there with that kind of money. And I think it's very important, and that's why I have you on here. I want to say this before I go into my questioning to you. Yes, you are the first Pennsylvania Association Realtor president, and I'm glad that you are. And one of the things that I've always been a believer of is that I want everyone to know, if you work at it, sometimes you have the opportunity to present yourself in those kind of positions.
Yeah.
Probably my audience is probably not aware of this. Not early on in my career, but somewhere in my career, I had the fortune of being the commissioner of professional licensing for the state of Pennsylvania, which was 26 license boards and commissions. And you have to be confirmed by the Senate, but the governor has to nominate you.
Yeah.
And the commissioner oversees all of them. And they oversee the real estate commission. They oversee all the realtors have to take tests.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've always said to myself, we got to step up to the plate and make sure that we get in all these positions. And the fact that you're in this position, I'm proud of you that you're in that position, but now we're going to switch, and now I'm going to have you put on your other hat. And the other hat I want you to put on, and the reason that I wanted you on this program, I want you just to talk to my audience about real estate. And I'm going to call it real estate for dummies. And the reason I say real estate for dummies is that all of us have bought houses, or some of us have bought houses, or some are attempting to buy houses. But I just want you to just go over some things with us, because I think we need to know. Sometimes we think we know and we don't know. And sometimes there's a lot of information out there that if we would have known, it might have been an easier transaction. So really, tell me this. So you kind of give me your experience. Tell us how the real estate business works.
Well, let me start off with this. After COVID, there was a push for people to get generational wealth. Prior to COVID, you really didn't hear that concept. Now, now I'm a landlord, I have rental units. My tenants are not building any type of equity or wealth as they rent to me. If you, as a family, if you're still renting and you're in your 40s, you're not generating wealth that you can pass on to either your children or your grandchildren. Say your grandchildren might want to go to some type of post-high school program, but it might cost a little money. If you have equity in your home, you can borrow that equity and you can give those funds to your grandchild. And then they can go debt-free to get a skill. And then when they graduate, they can go into the employment market, get the type of job that they're looking for, and they can hopefully start this process all over. So if you're not in the process of buying a home, you should be. Now, there's some catches to this. Some of my tenants, when I look at them, over time, generally people are not making the preparation that they should be making to get ready for adulthood. When Richard and I came up, if we dropped out of high school, we were going to go to NOM. No ifs, buts about it. So that was the incentive for everybody to stay in school as long as they could. I literally mean everybody. And so, some people just don't make a preparation to get ready for adulthood. But one day you're going to have to. I've had some tenants who have bought their own home, which is great. But one day, I hate to say this word, you're going to have to grow up and do what's necessary to give your family some type of generational wealth. Now, the other problem people have is they might not pay their bills. And that is a bad mark on your credit. And what mortgage companies do, they're looking at your FICO score to determine the credit worthiness of you as an individual. That means that if you want to buy a home and your credit score is not good, the mortgage company is afraid that if they lend you the money, that you might not be able to make the payments for a variety of reasons. So therefore, trying to pay your bills on time, build up credit, trying to get a credit card, and then try to pay it off every month if you can. That's to do these little financial things. Try to find a career that you actually like to do and do everything you can to stay in that career, not to be hopping from job to job, or to be unemployed for a while, and then you might get a job. But the fact is that you have to show the world that you're really serious, that you want what everybody else wants. And there's no reason for you not to get it. Granted, there is discrimination, there's this, there's that, but there are still opportunities, and that we have to try to take advantage of the opportunities. And the opportunities are to try to buy your own home that is yours. You can paint it whatever color you want. If you want to get a dog, you can get a dog. You can do whatever you want in your home. But there's limitations of doing these things in someone else's home. Rick?
I would think that by saying that, could you also, you've talked about being credit worthy and things of that nature, but there are programs out there for people
Yeah,
to be first home buyers. They can do things to kind of help themselves to be prepared to own homes, because something that you said earlier is generational wealth, which in the community we don't have a lot of generational wealth. And one, because we didn't have it and nobody never really talked about it, and probably they never heard the word generational wealth.
yeah.
So, in saying all that, so you're saying then that people should do some research at thinking about buying a house, but you're saying everybody basically should try to buy a house. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Now you had mentioned about help. I'm glad you brought that up. And I have been fortunate in the sense that I've been exposed to a lot of things. As I'm going up my career ladder. Let me give you an example. In in the state of Pennsylvania, we have the Pennsylvania Finance Agency. I forgot what
Pennsylvania House
PHFA. Yeah,
Finance.
and their purpose is to help people, get ready to buy a home. Now, in that process, there are banks, local banks in your area where you live. Like in Pittsburgh, we have Dollar Bank, First National Bank, we have S&T Bank. We have a lot of local banks who want to help you by offering weekend classes, so you can understand the finances, what you have to do. They will give you opportunities to get your credit score up. And when you finish the program, you are going to earn some funds. They'll give you down payment assistance. They'll give you closing cost assistance. And, this is a way for you to get your foot in the door. And all the major cities in the Commonwealth have this. And I think that if you're in a major city or near one, you should contact the PHFA, because they have an office in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the headquarters is in Harrisburg. And see what programs you can get in based on where you live. But you have to be serious about this. This is an opportunity and it's free. You're not going to be charged anything, and that we should all take advantage of stuff that is free.
Okay, now you're starting to prepare people to think about buying a house.
Yeah.
Um, before I so tell me this here. Okay, a lot of times one of the problems is, especially in minority communities, um, why is it at this point in time it seems like some of the houses are outpriced, or our parents might have lived in them, and so therefore they're falling down now. What is your perception on this? I'm going to play round robin with you. I'm going to talk about different things, and I don't want this to be one of these kinds of things that I just want us to be open and candid. So I may say some things. I'm probably going to bring up gentrification, but I just wanted that's one of the things that has always bothered me, because even when I go home to Pittsburgh and I drive down the neighborhood that I grew up in, it pains me. Tears go down my eyes, because the neighborhood that I did know or thought I knew does not look like that neighborhood now. And what are some of the reasons for that?
Well, let me say, one problem that we have. I think it was in either April or May. A local minority group wanted me to give a speech about vacancy and abandoned homes. So, unfortunately, if we take a city like Pittsburgh, where because of the job situation, a number of the children have moved on. Like, there's a reason why they have these Steelers fans in all these other football cities. You know, the parents were born in Pittsburgh. They moved there for work, be it DC, Houston, what have you. Their kids are born in a local city, but they show up. The parents do with their Steeler stuff on. Now, their parents might still be alive, or their mother, and they have a house. back in Homewood. And, you know, Dad might have died 10, 15 years ago, and nothing's been done on the house. And then Mom is in the home, and Mom is not doing anything. The home starts to deteriorate. You know, she has everything that she's ever bought. It's there, you know. Then Mom passes away. The kids stay are in D.C. They have a nice home in Maryland, you know, and they don't have an interest to come back. So what will happen is that they'll come back and do the funeral arrangements for Mom. They might even clear out the house, but that house would just sit there, and it has a strong probability it will become an abandoned home. And then when Richard, you said you're driving around, these are the things that you see. And then over a period of time, the local government would come in and say, well, we're going to start tearing down some of these abandoned homes. And then they start tearing homes down where you used to have a neighborhood block which did not have any vacant land. Every square inch had a home on it. Now you drive down that street or that block, you might only see 4 or 5 homes, and they're scattered. One here, one over there, things like that. I don't know what we can do in order to stop homes being abandoned. When homes are abandoned, what happens, you really start to lose your community. You know, then gentrification can happen, where people who want to move back in the city because they don't necessarily want to commute like people did when Richard and I became adults, where people want to go to the suburbs. Now a lot of these folks, their kids, they want to come back to the city. And so these are communities now where the property values are not high. They can come in, buy a home, fix it up, bam. They can use an Uber. They can do this. They can do these things. They can now work in the near the college section. And so the people who are there don't necessarily have the wealth to compete. So over a period of time, you know, the percentage of the original you know, residents will start to decline. Because of the concept of money in the United States, there's not much we can do about this. We can ask governments and the PHFA to try to help people, but people have to know that these things can be done. I mean, you just can't sit and not do anything and complain. You have to know. Now, one of the advantages in knowing that Richard used to be one of the commissioners and signing the licenses is that people now know that, maybe I can do that. The fact that I was president of my local association, people will say, you know what, maybe I should get into real estate. And the fact that I made it to being president of the state association, it's the same thing. If you can see it, then you realize you can actually do it. And if you can do it, you have to start. You know, you just have to start. Now, if you want to save your community, you have to save the community. We cannot be relying on the government to come in and save the community. We have to do it. It's like my parents' home. My parents, they both died in '08. Well, I sell real estate too. I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and my next brother's a dentist, and then one is retired. The next one, and the fourth one, he works at U.S. Steel. Now we are renting our parents' home out. You know, you know, it's a family that's been in there since day one. And, you know, we're collecting the rents, we're doing whatever repairs that we have to do, we're paying the taxes, we're keeping insurance up, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to do it. And we a lot of times people sit around, they want somebody else to do it.
Let me ask you this. I've told you I'm going to jump around. What about a lot of times, you kind of brought it up, where people that have wealth, they come in and they buy up the houses, and like I said, and they market us out. So you're saying what we need to do is to do our own homework, and we should buy our own houses up, because one of the problems, and I realize this here, and you can please explain this, where you have someone who had owned the house, and they might have paid, say, $15,000, $20,000 a long time ago.
Yeah.
And like you said, the mom or the dad or the kids in there, and now somebody comes in and wants to buy the house off of them, and they are willing to give them $30,000 because everything around them is all being bought up. Where are they gonna go to live? So what happens there? What are some of the things we should do?
Well, let me add a little something else. There is a proposed legislation in Harrisburg to deal with this wholesale concept. Okay, these are called wholesalers, and these are middlemen who take advantage of homeowners' lack of knowledge of the value of their home. Where would someone get the value of their home? We don't even know what our cars are worth. And you know what happens to us when we go to a dealership to trade in a car. We're going to be skinned alive. We're going to be skinned on our trade and on buying the new car. So now look at your home, which is more expensive than say, the cars that you're dealing with. Like I use the example, like Claude, he gets a phone call and the guy's saying, well, Claude, I want to buy your home off of you for 90,000. Claude said, hold on. He holds the phone. He tells his wife, some fool want to give us $90,000 for this stuff. Now, what Claude doesn't realize is that in the neighborhood, homes are going for 150, 200,000. Claude might only pay 12,000 for it, and he's thinking that he's getting a steal, but he is giving someone else, that wholesaler, 60, 70, $80,000 of his wealth because he doesn't know what his home is worth. So when the legislation is passed, it passed in the Senate, at PA in the beginning of June, and hopefully it will be done in the House very, very soon so the law can be implemented. Now, the family members have to pay attention. Okay, if your mother is the last one in the home, she passes away, you just can't bury mom and then clear out some of the stuff and drive back to DC. You have to allocate time in order to see what you can do about that home. I'm not saying you should come back and invest a lot of money in it, but you might have relatives who live in the area who could very easily maintain a home for you. You can earn a little rent, but the home will not deteriorate. The key thing is to keep the assets going, keep it alive as long as you can. And unfortunately, we have this issue of wholesaling. Now, the other big problem we have after the recession in 07, 08, a lot of money people said, hey, why should I buy stocks? They go up and down. I should just buy real estate. So in 07, 08, in the Great Recession, a number of homeowners lost their homes. And a lot of these, private equity funds, they started coming in buying homes. I'll give you an example. We met a senator in PA, Senator Luca, a couple years ago. He passed away subsequently, but we had a meeting in Harrisburg with his his office manager. And as soon as we sat down, the first thing he asked us was, "Who is this investment company buying all these homes in Penn Hills?" Penn Hills is a suburb of Pittsburgh. And we didn't know because when we do real estate, we're not looking at who's buying. We're looking at a home, showing it to our clients, and hopefully they want to make an offer. So I told him, I said, when I come back to Pittsburgh, I'll look this up for you. So I came back and I looked it up on the multi-list and I made a comment to my manager. She jumped out of her seat. Jen jumped out. She said, "It's so-and-so, so-and-so." Because she used to be manager of the Monroeville office, and they're all close by, Penn Hills, Monroeville, Wilkins Township. And these companies have bought hundreds of homes. There are some companies in Pittsburgh that bought thousands of homes through in certain areas. If they buy those homes, I said earlier, people should be trying to buy a home to build generational wealth. You can't, because these guys are coming in paying cash, okay, buying a home and then renting it out. That house has been taken off the market in order to be one of the homes to try to build wealth. Let me give an example. I had a listing in Wilkinsburg at the end of last year. That the owners came in, they spent some money fixing it up, and we had it on the market for 105,000, I think. And it's brick home, 3 bedrooms, 1 full bath. They had a Pittsburgh toilet in the basement. Okay, it didn't have a garage. It had a lot of steps to walk up to get to the front door. And an investor bought it in like 2 days. And they paid us more than what it was listed for. They were paying cash. That home is being rented out right now. So we have wholesalers coming in trying to steal your generational wealth, and we have investors coming in who's saying that real estate is a good investment, and they want to go in markets where the prices aren't extremely high. In other words, they are not doing this in Beverly Hills. Okay, they're not doing it in Beverly Hills. They would do it in areas where the prices aren't really high. And Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Allentown, Scranton, Erie, all our larger cities have areas where prices aren't that high, and a lot of these investors are coming in buying these homes.
I want to comment real quickly to the audience. There are so many organizations out there that are nonprofit that are willing to help. We have one in Harrisburg. I see there's a young developers now that are trying to help in the community. But we have to take some responsibility, as you said earlier, in the community, because we need to develop generational wealth. Before I ask you some other real estate questions, could you explain to my audience what is reverse mortgage?
Well, a reverse mortgage, I'll say it this way. Say you're a family and you have paid your home off, and you're in your late 60s, and you're in the retirement mode, and somebody calls you and say, "Hey, I'll give you your equity in your home right now. Say $100,000, and you don't have to leave. You can stay in the home. And I'm thinking they're not going to charge you any rent. I mean, I don't know what happens about the taxes, And people take that. But the problem is that when they pass away, whatever accumulative equity that would have occurred after you got the reverse mortgage is not going to go to your family because you don't own the home. It's going to go to an investor. Now, hopefully you don't have a reason where you actually need that money. But if you don't need the money, I would probably consider some other options before I would consider a reverse mortgage, because you're literally taking money today, giving all future accumulation of wealth away. You're giving it to the other person. And I mean, it's sad, but there's always someone trying to make money one way or another.
I mean, the reason I'm asking you that because every time I drive in the neighborhood, there's always signs up on the telephone pole saying, "I'll buy your house for cash," and there's TV commercials that come on and say, "I want to buy your house." I'm willing to buy it in any condition. And one of the things you said, I think this is what you said, you need to understand what the real market value is, because you may not know what the market value is, so therefore you think you're making money, but you're really giving money away.
Yeah. To me, I've talked to my broker about this, Hardy Hannah. Him and I had a couple of conversations about what I'm about to say now. Is that I would say, if you know a real estate broker or real estate agent, when someone gives you a call to buy your home, you should say, "Okay, let me get back to you." You should call someone who's in real estate and ask them about it. Because a real estate agent will be able to give you a very good idea of what your home is really worth. Okay? So therefore, instead of you not knowing, now you have someone on your side who's going to actually help you. If you decide that you want to go through with it. You might decide that you don't want to do that. You might decide you're going to stay in the home. and maybe wait 3 or 4 more years and put the home on the market, say with that real estate agent. And the home will be put on the market at market value. Where, when these folks are putting signs on telephone poles and calling you, their sole purpose is to make money. And they have to make money off you. And they do that by taking advantage of what you don't know.
And I think that's important, and that's why I didn't really want to get into. I wanted to go where I'm going with these kinds of questions. Time is running, so give me my audience some things that just off that you think that we need to be aware of, that we need to know as a person in our community.
In terms of real estate?
Real estate, yes.
Well, the first thing you have to decide is where do you want to live? You might live in one neighborhood, but you might want to move to another neighborhood for a variety of reasons. A lot of times, the number one reason would be education for your kids. You might want to do that. Then you have to look at areas that will give you that. Or you might want to, where you are now, you don't have all this like concrete and asphalt all around you. You might want to go to a place where you can have some green grass. You can, sit in your backyard and stretch out and, put your canopy up and maybe have an Iron City beer, what have you. So you and your spouse have to decide. Maybe you might bring your kids in to decide what you actually want to do. And that once you make that decision, then I think it's always best to contact your local real estate broker. If you happen to know somebody, you can talk to them, and let's get a feel on the whole process. What would have to be done? Most of the time, people don't know, and you have to try to be in a position where you're not going to be taken advantage of. Because unfortunately, money's king in the USA. And because of money, people will take advantage of it. And they will not lose any sleep, that night, So the fact is that decide what you want to do, where you want to go, and try to find out who can help you get there. If you want to, it mainly depends on where you want to move and why you want to move there.
The other thing is that I want to ask you this question. What is your vision in terms of what do you think we need to do in terms of investment in our community?
Well, in every community, the number one investment is real estate. It could be residential, it could be commercial, but that's the number one investment. You and I know years ago in the Homewood section of Pittsburgh, before there was a Walmart and before there were many malls out in the suburbs, each community had their own little business district. And Homewood Avenue had a business district that was probably 3 or 4 or 5 blocks. And we had 2 supermarkets, we had 2 banks, we had, shoe stores, clothing stores, we had a hardware store, we had this, we had Isley's and sold ice cream, boom, 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 boom. We had a whole bunch of stuff. We had a G.C. Murphy, that was like a discount store, a 5 and dime store. We had all those things right there. And we had local gas stations, and people would, buy the gas station, and they're providing a service, to the community. And, we had those things. But today, a lot of those things, because of the suburban malls and the big box stores, they cannot compete. And a lot of these things have literally gone out of business. So we have structures that are still there. Some have been torn down. But what we can do is, this gets back to what we said earlier. We can go into our community. We can try to do the best we can to rebuild, to invest in our community. And we should not be waiting on someone else to do it. And we should not be saying, hey, the last one out, turn the lights off. We should take this up. And don't sit around and complain because other people did it and you didn't do it. Try to do the best you can to save your community, and everyone has to do it. Yes, you can work with the churches, the nonprofit agencies. There's a lot of entities that are there who have a structure who can actually help you do these things. So you have to see it, you have to think it, and you have to actually say it, and you have to do it.
We only got like 2 more minutes to go before this program's over, so I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to say what you want to say to my audience. I just want my audience to understand I was not going to go into the details breaking down real estate in terms of how you get out of a contract, how you do the listing. That's not where I wanted to go with this program. I wanted to go with this program exactly where we're going. I wanted to go with the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
So I would like for you just to don't sugarcoat it. Tell us what your vision and your view is of what we really should be doing. Even though I agree, generational wealth is very important, and that's something that we have not had for a lot of reasons. And we'll have another discussion on why folks don't have generational wealth.
Yeah. Well, in the summary, I probably want to say this. You can't wait until you're 40 to decide to grow up. You have to try to do the best you can to start growing up when you're in, junior high or middle school. And be on a course to put yourself in a good position when you graduate from high school. And then decide what type of additional training, because you come out of high school, you're going to need some additional training, either a trade, or you go to a community college, or you go to a 4-year university. But then you learn a skill and you bring it to the marketplace, and you start working, you start saving some money. You ask your parents if they can help you. If you want to get married, you go through the process of finding a spouse, and hopefully the two of you are working, and you're saving money, and then you start the process of looking for a home. But you can't wait. Parents have to see to it if they can for their kids to get started. When they're young. When they're doing this and that. Now that's to show you, and it's probably not fair what I'm about to say. We have 4 adult kids, and they all own their own home. They're all married. We have 9 grandkids. Like two, and then one has 3. And they all own their home because they saw that's what we did. Unfortunately, you have to find a mentor, someone who can help you. And there's a lot of mentor programs that are coming about also, but you have to get that extra boot to get you going in order for you to make a change in your life and your family's life.
I think part of the problem is that I agree with you, because one of the problems has been a lot of times there's been no hope, no vision, no dream.
Yeah.
And because there's been no hope, no vision, and dream, that's why I have these programs. That's why I want people like you on, because like you said, if you did it, I did it, they can do it as well.
Yeah, they can do it. You can do this.
I agree. And I just want to say this before I end. He's absolutely right. We grew up together. If you would have told us when we was running the streets that we would be where we are now, we would be lying to you.
Yeah,
But the fact is, we did it, so you can do it as well. But sometimes you got to do research.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't wait for it to come and fall in your laps. But you got to be motivated. And one of the things, and I'm going to say this, and some people's not going to like what I'm getting ready to say, sometimes we have used crutches to carry us, as you and I know. And I'll say this, and one time I was on the Housing Authority of Harrisburg. That is supposed to be a temporary stop. That is not supposed to be a generational living condition. So therefore, I want those people, all people, to look at vision, dreams, and hope, because we all can do it. It may take a little longer than others. People are going to get frustrated. But if you don't learn anything else tonight, what we're telling you, you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Preston Moore.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah, you will. So have a good one.
Okay, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104. We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions.